This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and today we're here to do something completely different. I'm here to give you a very basic tutorial on how to paint your own car in Sims. Now, any sim, regardless of the sim, it uses a template, a flat image of the car that it wraps around the body of the car to create the paint jobs that we see when we're racing. I don't care what sim it is, that's the way the process is done. Now, each sim treats it slightly different about how to get your template into the game, but the important thing in the first step is just learning how to work with these templates, and that can be a big task for a lot of people if they're not familiar with paint programs. Now, it's also impossible for me to teach you how to use every paint program. I'm using Paint Shop Pro 7. They went on to make 8, 9, X, and I don't even know what they call the latest version. I didn't need them. I'm fine with Paint Shop Pro, but they do change things with the program through each generation. If you use Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, any of those type of products, same thing. I don't know which version you're using. They're all a little bit different, but the basics, the core of what we're doing here is going to be the same regardless of what program you use. There's also the GIMP. It's the free paint program. A little more difficult to use because it's free. You got to download and figure it all out on your own, but it works just as well as Paint Shop or Adobe products, and it's something that you can use as well. Now, the first thing when you're going to get to go painting a car is understanding the template. And for each sim, there's going to be a different process on how to find the templates. Each sim provider has a different way of making them available to you. And I am doing an iRacing car. I'm painting a Mustang, a NASCAR Mustang, and I downloaded the template from Trading Paints, which any member of iRacing can do. So I do have the template. And the first thing we're seeing here is a colored version of the car because a template has layers. And I'm going to have to explain this really quickly, and maybe now is the good time to do that. A template has layers, and you can turn on and off each layer purely by clicking on this little red X over the glasses being for vision. So as you see right now, it has this paint job, but if I turn this one off, it's going to let me see the next layer below it. Now I have to explain layers to do this properly. Let's say that I have a pizza, and a pizza covers 100% of the size of our piece of paper that we're working with in the case of our template. The dough covers the entire surface area. When there's only one layer, the layer of the dough, I can see the entire thing. Now let's say I'm going to pour sauce on the entire middle area, covering up 75% of the middle. That's a second layer. That's a layer on top of the dough. Now I can't see the dough everywhere that the pizza sauce is because it's covering it, just like this layer is covering the next layer below it, and so on and so on. You put cheese on the sauce. Well, you're going to see the cheese, and anywhere you don't see cheese, you'll see the sauce, and then you'll see the dough. And then you put the pepperonis. Well, that could be layers of paint. That could be a body paint color of red. That could be a stripe of green, a small stripe of blue. That's cheese. That's pepperoni. That's sauce going on top of our dough. So that's a good way of thinking of layers. And when you're looking at a template, regardless of the program, you're going to see that it breaks down to all of these layers of things. Now, on the Trading Paints templates, they have all of these pre-done paint jobs that I can... It's in one layer. All of these colors are one. So it's very tough to work with other than just saying, oh, I like that one. But what we want to do is create our own. So I'm going to turn off every single layer and get us down to the base car. And then I'm just looking at a blue Mustang. Now, one thing we can do, I'm going to get ahead of myself. This whole process is going to be moving forward, going back. I'm going to try to explain everything I'm doing so that you can get it. And I apologize. This is going to be a long piece. It's going to take a while to get through all the steps. If you're an advanced painter, I'm not going to teach you anything that you don't know. If you're a complete novice, you're going to want to learn some of these steps, that's for sure. Now, when I save in iRacing, the template is kept inside of your Documents folder. So if I go to my Documents, and I go to iRacing Members, and I go to Paint, and then I go down to the Stock Cars NW Ford 2013, that's this car shape. Now, TGA is the type of graphic. It's called a True Vision Targa. And that's the type of file that iRacing recognizes. Now, when I save this template as a TGA, It basically combines all these layers into one, puts it as one layer, and then iRacing sees that image and wraps it around the car. Now, the other key is to what car. How does iRacing figure out what car? Well, we all have a player number. So in this case, my number is 15631. I'm going to save this car as car_15631. And I'm going to save it as a True Vision Targa, a TGA. When I do that, it's going to overwrite the one because I've already made a car before. Now, when I get into iRacing, what you're going to see is when I hit Control R, it's going to update that player file. And you now see a blue car, just like that. And that's the way that we can check our work. Not so tough to check our work going from white to blue, but when we start doing stripes that wrap from the front to the side or across the hood to the side, we're going to want to be able to make changes, go into the game, and then just come right back and make an adjustment, back to the game, back to adjustment, back to the game, so on and so on. Now, I'm actually going to go back to a white car because it's easier to see our graphics and things for the most part. So I'm going to go ahead and change the car back to a white car. And I'm going to save the file. Well, I didn't remember my path. Documents, iRacing, paint, stock car, NW Ford 2013. We're going to save it as a TGA, True Vision Targa, car 15631. Overwrite the file. Yes, please. And then when we go back to iRacing and we hit Control R, it should come back. Right there, it's white, but it still hasn't updated. There's the car numbers. Now we know we're looking at our scheme. So, that is that. Okay, now, next thing when it comes to painting a car is you're going to have your overall design, something you want to paint, an idea of what you're going to want to paint. The other thing is you're going to be working with the sponsors, your sponsors, the brands that you want to put on your car, provided you want to do it. So for me, I'm going to paint a car that's sponsored by the Simpit. I think that's a big shocker for everybody. So I have a few of my Simpit logos available to me. They're all clear back logos, meaning that when you look at the logo, you'll see this checkered board means it's clear. Well, going back to the pizza, that means there's no dough on the table, just the pepperonis. So it's all air behind the pepperonis. So there's the Simpit logo just like that. And that means that I can take this and put it on top of any colors, and the colors will show behind it. The other thing is I'm going to use a few of my other favorite companies here. Ricmotech, they make my brakes that I currently use on my rig that I love. So I'm going to make sure to put their decal on it. And theirs is a real square logo. I was able to just make a cut and paste from their web shop and just clip it down to that size. Now in the case of SimExperience, when I went to their website, I was able to save their image, and I noticed that when I saved it, it was a .png. A portable network graphics is what a PNG file. Now a PNG supports those clear backs like I just mentioned with the Simpit logos, meaning that if I take this logo, and I'm not going to show you what I'm doing here, I'm just going to do it so you can see. You'll be able to see that I can put the logo on top of the car, and there's nothing else. It's completely clear. Wherever I put it, you'll just see it there. So I'm going to get rid of that logo because we don't need it yet. I just wanted you to see that. Now, when I went to Derek Spear, so I'm going to have Ricmotech, I'm going to have SimExperience, and I'm going to have Derek Spear. Now, when I went to Derek Spear's website, I just copied and pasted his logo, and you can see it brought in some of the header. Another thing I could have done was gone and saved it. When I saved it, it said it was going to be a PNG, and it was for this portion over here, but you can see over here there's some white behind his logo, and that made it unusable if I was going to have a colored car. So I actually just trimmed this off. What I ended up doing, you can highlight areas of a file, and so I'm just selecting with a little drawing tool this white area, and then I'm making it disappear, Control X. Do the same thing to this corner, hit Control X, and that made that clear. Now I don't need his slogan for this sake, So I could then just crop this image down to just the logo itself. And now it looks just like this one that I've already saved in advance. Just to give you an idea, that's a way to create a logo. But you do want the logos to be clear back so that they'll go over your colors nicely. So now I do have my assets. I have my Simpit, my Rick Motec, Sim Experience, Derek Spear Design. Now all I need to do is figure out how I want to paint this car. Now, I am not a painter by trade, so ideas don't come into my head that easily. And I'm not really going to tell you how to come up with great ideas, but I am going to show you how to work with the template like I mentioned. But before I do want to just give you a few tips on getting started. You can cheat and go to Google and look up flame jobs, things like that. Just type flame or artwork or hot rod, or RVs have spectacular graphics, as you know, big motor coaches. Think of things that have great graphics and look at them for inspiration on design. Or in this case, I could copy this image, come over here, and I'll tell you about layers in a minute, but I'm just going to put this down on a layer. And all of a sudden I have that flame job. I mean, depending on where you get your clip art, this could be illegal, so you want to use fair, legal art, but I could copy these flames and use that as my paint job if I wanted. I did another one for graphics that were with flags. I think I called it tribal art, and I came up with this design, which is kind of cool. Did another one for, funny enough, this looks like tribal art. I just did artistic checkered flags, and this came up. Here's a case of an RV. I looked up some RVs looking for their stripes, going, what do they do for coloration or paint scheme? So that just gives you some ideas of things you can do to steal ideas. I'm going to say, I'll call it steal, borrow. I mean, I could take this graphic, copy the image, and then just place it onto my car. And I mean, look at that. That's not a bad paint job right there. Right out of the gates, do some other stuff with it and work with that kind of design. So there are a lot of things you can do. Now, for today's show, I'm not going to use any of those. I'm just going to do some real basics so that you can understand and so that you can really start to paint your own cars for yourself. So let's get back to the layers really quick. When you're looking at the TGA file, or I'm sorry, this is a Paint Shop Pro file, so it's multi-layers. You have all of these different layers. And like I mentioned, you can turn them off by clicking on the glasses. And some of these layers you want on and some are unimportant. Now this one is the wire mask. Let me paint my car to a different color real quick. This wire mask is actually something made to help you line things up. And you can see that this line matches that line. So if you're doing a stripe that comes from the hood to the side, these wire frames will help you line things up. The ones that are here on the nose, these are the front bumper. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line up is the first line above the grill. Now if I go to the grill and I go over here to the front of the car, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and see the same line to help me guide things when I'm doing the paint job. That's really important when you're doing really sophisticated paint jobs with stripes and things that wrap around the entire car. Now the mask is another layer that you do need to leave on. You can see that brought up all of the silhouette that helps me see the car shape. Without it, I don't even know what I'm painting. You've got the license for your iRating license. If you want to see where the sponsors normally would go on the car, that's where they go. Or if you're painting a car that would be dropped in and get iRacing sponsors, your number blocks, these are where the numbers are drawn on the car. So if you need to just know, I mean, this area is going to be covered by numbers, so don't be putting a lot of energy into a fancy paint job right there. So then and if you just keep working your way down, you're going to see we have things, shadows, contingencies, parts, decals, paintable area. Then you have little tiny boxes on this. Like right here's one. Oh, that one's going to be for your license. Right here's one. This could be your roll bar, perhaps. Nope. Oh. Yeah, right there's your roll bar color. So whatever that little tiny square right there is, that's your roll bar color. So anyway, by turning these on and off, you can kind of see what it turns on and off on the screen. And you do want to leave all of these decals and contingencies and things on for the most part because you're going to be painting around them. They're going to show up on the real car. So I'm going to turn off my number blocks, but I'm going to leave everything else on. And the wire frame I'm going to turn off until I need it. So right now I have a single color solid paint job car. Just for real basics, I want to show you the basics. That's the point. Every program has a different way of doing certain things, but they all have similarities. Let's just say that I want to paint this to be a two-color car for right now. So right now, my main body, car body layer down here at the bottom is gray. That's what's giving us the color. All of these are those painted car patterns that we had that we turned off, but if I let them be seen, you'll see them. You can use these for inspiration too, by the way, if you are using one of these templates. So don't be afraid to take a look at those. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build all of my paint layers above. Remember the pizza. My silver color layer here is my car body. That's my dough. And the next color I do is essentially going to be my pizza sauce. So I created a layer above these car patterns called layer 43. And I just created a new layer. Here's another one called 44. I created a new one. Anything I now paint will be on that layer 43. So if I take my drawing tool, and in the case of Paint Shop Pro, there's a little thing to hit your drawing tool, and I draw, let's just for example give this car a little bit of a diagonal line going from the rear to the front, angling down. And now let's go ahead and paint that a color, a different color. I'm going to use really bright colors right now so they show up. So I'm going to paint this horrible light bright green. And you can see that that is now on my car. If I hit save, oops. If I hit save it as that car 15631 TGA, overwrite yes. Continue it's telling me that it's going to flatten the paint job, turn all these layers into a single paint job. Now if I go back into iRacing and I hit Control R, you will see we now have a green stripe on our car. Now to be really good, this stripe just comes to an end where you can see that the side of the car wraps around to the rear of the car. If we turn on our wireframe, which I'm not going to necessarily use, well, I could use it for the sake of demonstration. I had to turn off my recorder there. You can see we are right on the third line on the wraparound. So if I come up here and I look at this tail very detailed, I can count 1, 2, 3. If I were to paint from here across on that same layer, and I'm going to paint it that same green. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't see enough to do it. Control C is copy, so if I highlight this area, Control C is copy, so if I highlight this area and I hit Control C, and Control E is paste, I can just make a little bit more of it, and I continue it to the other side. So I've basically created that stripe going around. I can now hit save. And now I can refresh in the game. And you can see that our stripes don't line up. So I must have miscounted on the wireframe. But what I'm going to do is, I can see by how much. So what I really need to do is increase. And again, let's highlight this area. Let's copy it. Let's move it up a little bit more. Let's save. And let's refresh, Control R. And you'll see we are almost there. I'm going to zoom in with the car model. And look, oh, you can see we left the wireframe on, so you can see that in our mixture. You can see I'm just a few pixels off, so I can do a little bit more. Just keep building it up higher. I'm going to turn off my wireframe now. I'm going to hit save. And there you go. You can see it's perfectly matched up right there on the corner. So now I can zoom back out. Now, if we really want to keep working on this stripe, the nice thing to do would be just go to the other side of the car. So there are tricks we can do on this side. What we can do is I can select this whole side from the right side of the car, copy, Control-C, Control-E for paste. Now, all these programs have the ability to manipulate any object. Let's call this stripe here that I'm moving around an object. And I can distort it in so many different ways. It's really endless. But right now what I want to do is I just want to invert it. I want to flip it upside down. So I go over here to Image, and there's actually a tool for flipping. Now I have an exact opposite. And now what I could do is use that wireframe to line it up, but I'm just going to guess based on the bottom of the car. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to come into game. I'm going to hit Control-R, and I'm going to look at my stripe. And I'm a little bit high. You can see right there, I'm a little bit above the stripe on the back of the car. So I'm going to need to bring that down just a little bit. Come back to the template. It's still floating. You can see when this checkered line is around the image, the object, it's still moving. And this cross will allow me to move it around because I'm, you know, when you cut and paste an object into the game, or when you use the selection tool, it automatically assumes you're trying to move things around. So that's pretty standard, even beyond painting programs. So I'm just going to move that stripe slightly. You can see I just barely moved it up. Which is down on the car body, funny enough. And then I'm going to come over to the game. And I'm going to refresh. Still too high. So we're just going to come over here, and we're just going to keep moving it down. You can see, looking right here at the wheel well, you can see it moving down. I'm going to hit save. It's a little tedious. You're constantly making little 1 pixel at a time adjustments and then looking at your work. But this is how the process is done. Pretty close. Just like 1 more pixel and we'll have it. F12. F12 is save on Paint Shop Pro. I think it's a pretty standard save button. Back to the game. Control-R. And I went a little too low. Okay. Back to the game. Save. You know, you can be a super perfectionist, and at the same time, how often do people get this close? But I'm a perfectionist. I like my stripes to look pro. So just 1 more pixel up. And that should do it. Got lucky on that first one. There we go. All right, in case nobody knows this, I'm on my iRacing. If you hit Control F12, it brings up the camera alter tool, which is how I'm spinning the cameras around. I mean, I take for granted people know everything, but that's not so easy, or not everybody knows. So anyway, you can see here that we've got it around. That obnoxious red is our grill tape. We can change the color of that in the template as well. Another thing to look at, we're looking at the front stripe where it's incomplete. This is where it ends there. The spoiler is a different color as well. So that's something that we can make the same color or an alternate color. Now we need to paint the nose of the car though. And from when we were playing with the wireframe, we knew it was just a little bit above the grill. Now on here it doesn't look like that, but let's see. I'm just going to put a little representation area with my selection tool. I'm going to fill it with the green color. And I'm going to save. And then I'm going to go to game and hit Control R. And you can see we are way too high in the middle portions. I'm wondering if it didn't... What we need to do is just chop some of this middle spot away. So, X. I just deleted some of it with the selection tool and Control X. And back to the game, Control R. Still too high. Oh, because I didn't finish saving. You got to finish saving. Control R. There you go. That looks pretty good. I think I'm still 1 pixel too high. I'm going to cut just a little more away. Selection tool, just bring it a little more away. X, F12 for save. I'm going to just keep trying to tell you every step I do so you get it. And refresh, Control R. There we go. That looks great. And it lines up on that side as well. So, there you go. We now have a 2-colored car, a simple stripe. Now let's do something a little more exciting. Now, I mentioned the pepperoni and the whole pizza thing, and that is the concept of working with layers properly. So, layer 43, you can see right now when I hover it, it's green. If I paint above it, anything would go over the green. If I paint below it, anything would be under, and thereby not seen if it was under the green. But anything I paint would be over the gray, which is way down here on the layers. So, I had accidentally created that layer 43. I'm 44. I can move. You can just drag layers up and down. So when we talk about the layering and over and under, you can just drag layers up and down. So if you're trying to change the order of things, or you accidentally put your sponsors below the stripes, you might need to bring that layer above. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work below the green layer, and I'm going to show you why, just to make my point very clear. I'm going to do another stripe that is very similar to the green one, but different. And it starts much pointier at the front in that it actually... and this one I'm going to paint blue. Let's go real bright blue. Now you can see that we're not seeing all of the blue stripe because it's under the green, if that makes sense. If I turn off the green layer, just to let you get an idea, you'll see the entire blue layer. Turn on the green, it's covering that portion of the blue. So that's the way the layers work. I hope you understand it. It is important. It's something that you're going to come back to all the time. So that looks kind of cool. Just to give you an idea, second stripe. And let's go ahead and match that. I control copied that. I'm going to flip it with that tool, as you remember. And I'm just going to try to line this up the way I had the other one. I know I had it really pointed at the front, and I know it's coming in just below the end of the car there. And let's go like that. Okay, so that gives you just a basic 2-stripe, just like that, just so you can see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and save this so you can see it in the game. Control R. And there you go. Now I can move my camera and look at the way that tail looks from above, where I have the 2 blues now coming together, and decide how I want that to look. Oops. So, okay, well, we're going to actually add a third color now for a different reason. Now, again, I want to keep working underneath. So I'm going to build another layer. Under 44, I'm creating a new layer. This one's called 45. And this time, I want it to go right to this point here. And I think that should be, we'll have to see what it does, the entire rear end of the car. Whoops. Whoops, I screwed up. So, I want to come like this. Right there. Just drawing with my painting tool, by the way. I didn't mention that. And the cut point was about here. And we're going to go at the angle to the front of the car. Oh, I just realized we're supposed to have more blue on the back of the car. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a moment. That was a little bit of a mistake. Okay, and this will incorporate the rear deck lid as well. Okay, so I've drawn this whole shape, covering the whole rear end of the car. It's under the other two colors. And we're now going to paint that. What color would look good with the, white, I think, would look really good there. There we go. Okay, now let's save this and see it in-game. Kind of hard to see the white. What we're looking for right now, what I'm really concentrating on, is the way this stripe blends into the rear trunk. And it actually looks pretty slick right there. We also need to be concerned that it did the same thing on the other side of the car. And it did. So what you can see is we're missing our blue. We need to fill the back of our car with this blue to match the stripes. So let's go to our blue layer, which is layer 44, and let's just fill the back end of this car with that blue color from the green up. We're painting under the green, so it can actually overlap with no trouble because the green is going to create our border. Remember our layers and layers, the green is above, so I could paint this whole area blue. We'd only see where the green isn't showing. So there we go. F12, save, yes, yes, Control R. There we go. That is starting to look like a car. Okay, we haven't done anything exciting with the hood. And, you know, ultimately I'd like a little color on the hood of the car as well. So why don't we... I want to show you a few more things that I haven't really accounted for here. Let's go back to our example of copying graphics. Let's say I want to use this graphic. I'm going to hit Copy Image. I'm going to bring it back into my program. Now, Paint Shop, if I just... Now, there's a magic wand tool, and it's like a select color or select options type of thing. And if I click on that, I can have it select all of the white, and I can hit Control X and delete it. However, it doesn't like single layers if it's not a PNG type file. Remember we talked about the clear back. So, in order to do that, what I have to do is make this more than one layer. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the layer. I'm going to actually make the original one invisible. I'm going to go to that upper layer, and I'm going to do that magic wand. And now when I hit Control X, what do you know? It's all gone. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm now going to hit Control A, which will give me the entire leftover image. Oh, I noticed we have this little white box. Magic wand, and I hit... So you can see when I hit with the magic wand, it highlighted just this white. Make it go away. Now I can go to Control A, select all. And now you see the entire thing is highlighted. I can now use my flood fill and change this to any color I want. Like, for example, the crazy green that we have on the car. I can then copy that image, come in here. Now, I want this above my others. I'm going to create a new layer 46, and I'm going to hit Control E for paste, and I'm going to look at this on the hood. Now right now, let me zoom in a little bit so we can see what we're doing. It's actually a little bit large for what I want to do. And I'm only doing this so you can get an idea of how certain graphics work. The way Paint Shop works is I can do things to my objects like I mentioned. So for right now, what I want to do is I actually want to resize this. And I want to make it smaller. I want to make it about, and right now I have different options. I'm going to do it as percentage of the original, and I want to make it 75% as big. And that will change that layer and make it smaller. That's still a little too big. Let's do it again. Turns out Control, no. Shift, I always forget, sorry. Shift S is the command, the hot link for, the hotkey for that. All right, there we go. So we got a little cool splash on the hood. And then I'm going to hit Control C for copy. And I want to put one on the other side of the hood. But this one I actually have to flip, like we did with the stripes, so it goes the other direction. And I just want to line it up. I can use these orange marks. There are various different things on the car in order to use to line up, or you can turn on that wireframe, whoops, and use that. So you can judge what wire frame parts is it crossing, essentially, till you get it nicely lined up to where you feel it looks like a pro did it. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay, I'm going to turn the wireframe back off. So what I showed you there, though, is a way to copy a graphic online, manipulate it in a way, and drop it onto your car. Now, I think what would actually be really cool is to kind of do what we did with the green and blue and kind of shadow it a little bit. So what you can also do is take any layer and you can duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate that. I have now 2 copies of this green. I'm going to take the lower one and I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to fill it with the blue color that we've been using. Now, I just filled it, but you can't tell. And the reason you can't tell is because it's directly below the green layer. But if I select it so that I can move it, I can now move it. And you can see that I could actually do like a little drop shadow with the other color. Come down here and do the exact same thing for this one. Just like that. And now I have a little color on the hood. Let's go ahead and, these are not, I honestly, this car, I haven't really been putting a whole lot of attention into it in terms of making it look great. It's been more about just showing you tricks, to be honest with you. Hit Control R just to see our hood. All right, there's our little stripes. They're kind of weird, but they're there. Okay. Another thing, the roof's a little plain, so we could go onto the roof. I'm going to create another layer above those stripes, and I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm just going to put a whole spot on the roof. I think it'll look cool in dark blue. Bring out the blue. I'm going just inside of the little arrow things on the roof. So, save. Yes. Yes. Come over here. Zoom out a bit. And Control R. Whoop. Control R. I hit the wrong button. All right. There we go. Definitely starting to look like a car. I don't like those stripes on the hood, by the way. Let's get rid of those. Those look stupid. So let's take them off. The other thing we could do is, you know, I started with a gray car just for effect, but now I'm thinking I like black cars, to be honest with you. So what if we went with a black base and painted the base layer, that's the dough, and paint it black. Let's see how that looks by comparison. Save. Control R. Ooh, that looks pretty good. Okay, next is our logos. Let's get some logos on this car and call it a day. Done with that graphic. Okay, first things first. It's going to be hard to get the right contrast in certain colors. I can't cross the white with the white. On the hood, I'm going to use the big variation of the Simpit logo. That's a no-brainer, just like any NASCAR team. So I'm going to go to a layer above all of my paint layers, but below all of their shading and roll bar colors and everything. Create a new one. It's called layer 49. Control E, paste. You can see we have two problems. The logo is facing the wrong direction and it's too large. So if I go to my image, I can hit resize, and let's make it 60% of the right size. Still looks way too big. Let's go to, I did undo. Let's go to 40% of the original size. And then let's rotate. So Control R is rotate on this program. I'm going to rotate it left to the 90 to the left, I should say. And now I'm going to bring it down into the hood. It's still too big. So let's resize, Shift S, and go to 70% of that size. Oh, I did something wrong. Escape. I told it 700%. Yeah, that's what was going to take so long. Okay, and now we have a nice Simpit logo for the hood. Now, I used black on the front of the car, but we're a completely different paint scheme in the back. I wouldn't pick this color combo, but I think it'd be cool if we got our Simpit logo in black on the back of the car. So I can take my logo, I can hit Control A, select all, and then I can go ahead and fill this as all white. That'll give me the contrast I need. Copy. Bring it down onto my Simpit layer, layer 49. Control E. I'm sorry, I meant to make it black. Undo. Undo. Fill. A little fill tool. And every time I've done fill, it's been with this fill tool. Control C, copy. Control E. And shrink it down. Let's make this 40%. And now we can see how this looks on the car. It's still just a touch too big. It's coming into that black, which is probably just a little too big for the main sponsor. Let's go 80% of that size. Yes, yes, that looks great. Control C. And I'm going to go up here. Now, remember when we turned our logo there? This one we have to turn 180 degrees. It's not flipping it, or it would be upside down. It's rotating at 180 degrees. It's going to kind of be covered by the fuel area a little bit, but that's the way it goes. And we can kind of look at the way the T here and where we would be on the wheel well for the height to make it match the other one perfectly. And that looks pretty good. Now sometimes, actually, you know what I think would look even better? Let's get rid of those. Using the main logo, which we see so nice on the front of the car, actually made it small on the word Simpit. Let's try again and only use the word Simpit. And make it 75% as big. Way too big. Oh. Okay. And Control C, copy. Put one up on top. Rotate it 180 degrees. And there you go. Okay, now if you see it's a little hard to see that, I can create, well, let's go ahead and look at it in game. So, save, F12. Go in game, and Control R for refresh. You can see I can barely see it there on the side. That's not so good. We have a couple options we could do. One, we could have used proper contrasting colors to begin with. We could have built a paint scheme that actually suited the colors. Since we didn't do that, another trick I can do is bring a lot of attention to it with some contrasting color outlining. So I'm going to select my two logos on the back, not the one in the front because it's on the same layer. I'm going to create a layer underneath this one, but above our colors. And then I have a thing called a selection tool. That'll allow me to modify, expand this selection area. And I'm going to make it 3 pixels bigger, meaning it enlarged that by 3 pixels. Now I'm going to go to my newly created layer, and I'm going to use the fill tool to fill that new selected area with this orange, which is going to look really nasty, but it will create contrast. So let's save. Oops. All right, there you go. That looks pretty good. Spin it around. Look at that. I can see that pretty well. It's a very distinct car. Okay, now let's add some other sponsors to this nice looking car. Okay, I'm going to go above my Simpit layer, create a new one, layer 52. I'm going to take my Ricmotech logo, Control C, Control E, and I'm going to rotate it 90 to the left. It's a little small, so I'm going to enlarge it. Shift S, 125%, 125%. There we go, right on the rear deck lid with Ricmotech. We'll take our Derek Spear design, and we'll put this below the Simpit. On this same layer, I think is fine. We'll call it our associate level. Resize that to about 65%. That looks real good. We'll put that one down there. And then I want to copy that one actually, so put it up on the top. I have to flip it around, remember. Rotate 180. All right. And Sim Experience is our other one. A little too big for that spot, so we'll just kind of go like that. That looks good. Nice. Look at that. And whoops. Let's undo so it's still highlighted. Control C, Control E, and rotate it 180 degrees. Somehow I made my program small. And there we go. Okay. Probably do something to the back. Let's go ahead and save this. Take a look. All right, now we got some big names. I think our logos are just a little too big. So let's make the Derek Spear. I'm going to delete this one. I want them to be the same size. So let's delete both of those, actually. I think the Ricmotech is going to look fine, but let's take both of these and resize them 85%. And let's do this one. Another 85%. Alright, boom. And we'll copy the whole pair there. And we'll bring them up here. Rotate 180. Now you can see, whoop, I need to change the way they sit. So I need to move this one back towards the wheel well to make it like the other one. Alright. And F12, save. Max, shut up! And how does it look? There we go, much better. That looks proper for secondary sponsors. Okay, we are looking pretty good. on that. Another thing, okay, we didn't deal with this front spoiler. That was something else. You know, you kind of sometimes have to explore on the car parts as to what is painting what. So if you look at this right here, we have a black nose. And we could leave it that way, or we could paint it green. So I happen to know, I mean, sometimes you have to just kind of paint things to find out. When I don't know what part of the car I'm painting, this is what I'll do. So I suspect that this is, I happen to know this is, but let's just say I suspected that this piece be that part of the car. I will highlight it. I'll create a new layer, so whatever I paint is on that layer, and I can turn it on and off or delete it. And then I'm going to paint it a color that is nowhere found on my car. So in this case, pink works great. And I can paint that sucker pink. And that should stand out like a sore thumb when I look at my car in-game. So I'll save it. Come over here and refresh. And in this case, I do know it's the lower spoiler that I just painted. But you can see, there it goes. And the whole front spoiler is now pink. So, in this case, I can actually leave this the way it is since it's isolated. And I can just change the colors simply as highlight it. Whoop, don't move it. And then flood fill. So if I wanted to make it the blue, for example, that could look cool. Undo. Okay, there's before it was pink. Now let's paint it blue. And save. Alright. Now let's pivot the car and see how that looks from far away. Whoop. Alright, that looks pretty cool. I think it'd be cool to have the little black on the bottom of the car too. I'm going to create another layer. And I'm going to use my selection draw tool. And I think from this whole lower section from below the door, you can see there's a very faint line down here. And just paint this bottom part of the car black. I think that'll look cool. F12 save. Yeah, I like that. If you ever want to compare, like that's kind of hard on pit lane because you don't see it, but you can see there's the green right there. And, whoops, I like the black better. So I can copy that, bring it up here. Now I have to flip it over. You can mirror also, which is flip it that way for that way versus flip going that way and that way. In Paint Shop Pro. So yeah, I need to flip it. Or I already did flip it. What am I doing? No, I mirrored it by accident, didn't I? Shit. No, I had already flipped it is what it was. Sorry. It looks like I made it a little too tall, so I'm going to have to trim a little off on this side so it's not on the bottom bumper. F12, save. Refresh. All right. That is starting to look pretty cool. I didn't check on the Ricmotech logo. Let's go up high and see that. Yeah, it looks great. Okay. Also, I want to look at the back of the car. Did it look too plain? I think it looked okay. Yeah, we need to get our sponsors on the back. So, let's go to our Simpit layer. And let's copy the hood logo. And then we're going to shrink it, resize it to like 35%. And we're going to turn it back to the right, 90. right? 90 rotate. And we'll put that right there. And I think we'll put our Ricmotech layer. Ricmotech's our second sponsor. We'll put them, rotate it to the right, 90, and shrink it. Oh, too small. 50%. And we'll put that one right down there. That looks pretty cool. And we can save it. All right, that looks pretty good. Other thing I want to show you before we go away. I had mentioned the tape layer. So right now when we look at the car, the tape layer is holding down the pins, these 4 little sections holding it. It's what's going around this upper vent on the car, and it's these big ones there. Right now, it's sort of a reddish color. So if we go to our template and you look for tape, right here, I can turn off the tape and have it not be there, or have it show up as black. Or I can hit Control A, my select all, select it, and now I can paint it a color that suits my car better. So let's go with blue. Hit F12, save. When I hit Control R, refresh. There you go. You can see it changed all the tape to blue. Another part of the car that we can work with is the roll bar. So if you go to the roll bar, and I hit Control A, and I select it, and I hit Fill, and it's this little teeny dot here that I'm filling, and I change it to blue. Hit Save. Now I want to zoom in. I'll show you from inside the car in a moment too, but let's just spin around so because you can see it from the outside. See all the roll bar? And Control R. Roll bar is now all blue. See that? So that is about it. I can't think of anything else really to tell you other than, you know, it takes a lot of time to come up with designs. It takes a lot of time to come up with color combos that work well. You still have to integrate the way the numbers work with the paint scheme. I can change the wheel colors in iRacing to make it suit the car as well. There are a lot of different things that you can do in order to really make it your paint job. These programs are very, very powerful. I didn't really show you the tricks of Paint Shop. There are so many things you can do. You can find endless tutorials on how to be an expert on Paint Shop, and that will help you do better paint jobs, that's for sure. In my case, I use some of the very basics. In the case of Adobe, there are a lot of tutorials there as well, and so many tricks that you can do with these paint jobs. I'm not a pro. I'm an average painter at best, as you can see from my work here. But I did want you to understand and grasp the concept of the layers, of downloading a template from whether it's Trading Paints or from the guys at R-Factor, Assetto Corsa, or whatever. Download the template, bring it into your Paint Shop program, identify the layers, turn them on and off. I mean, let me just go back. I mean, I can start turning off the colors, and you'll see what we have here layer by layer. Play with the layers of the template to understand what it really is. Use Control A, which is select all, and identify things by using little tricks like that. Get your assets ready. Make sure they're as clean an image as possible because it'll make a big difference on the way you see it in the car. Figure out who your secondary sponsors. In this case, my biggest failure, green, blue, white, and black is a terrible color to go with an orange and white logo. So pick a color scheme that makes sense for the companies you're using on the car. If you have any questions on how to paint, please put them with this video at thesimpit.com. I know I didn't cover everything. I know there are endless things that I didn't do here that you might have questions on, and I'm more than willing to go back and do follow-up on this piece or answer those questions directly at the Simpit. I hope this has helped you. I know it was long, I know it was tedious, but so is painting. But when you're done, it can be rewarding. I did paint myself a very nice Indy car that I'm looking forward to, and I'm going to probably redo this car now that I've showed you how to do it. I mean, the other thing, let me show you, I'm sorry to go back and forth and end things. Let's just say it's a matter of color that I don't like. Well, I can go back to my green layer. Now that it's all painted so nicely, I can go back to my green layer, hit Control A, let it select it all, and now I go to my flood thing, and I can actually switch this to all be the Simpit orange. And just like that, this paint scheme now suits this car, or this logo. If you paint your layers, your color layers, if you paint each color in its own layer, it makes it that easy to do total color changes just like I did. All the green has now been replaced by that orange color. I can do the same thing for the blue right now. I can go to the blue layer, hit Control A, let it select it, and then use the flood fill. Now, looks like I did the roof and the bumper on different layers, so right now it's only picking up what's on that layer. But I can replace that with a gray color. And there you go. If I'm going to do that, it really does mean the roof needs to go as well, to be honest with you. I'm going to do that just so you can see what a whole color change would be. There's my roof. Select it. Let's paint it that... Oh, what happened? Undo. I don't know what I just did there. Select it. Paint it the gray. Cool. I know one of the last layers I did was that front hoop. Same thing. Let's select it. Paint it gray. Let's make our roll bars match. Control A on the roll bar layer. Select it. I can see it's this little dot, and I'm going to fill it with that orange. The only downside I see is my Simpit logo is no longer showing. So one thing I could do is, because I went to orange, it now, you can see this rear one. So I was about done with this piece. I thought we were done. We thought we were done, didn't we? All right, I'm going to just delete this. I'm going to grab this, Control C, and I'm going to go Control E, and I'm going to make it 15%, and put that right there. That should look much better. And save, and Control R. So you can see we have a completely different paint job, just like that. I can change that tape color to make it even match, but basically painting in layers allows you that kind of flexibility, the ability to just change the colors like that, try different colors, work out the paint job, move independent colors or things around, as you saw how we did in this piece. So again, I hope this helps you. If you do have any questions on how to get more out of painting, hit me up at thesimpit.com. Put your questions with this video. I'll do my best to answer. If we get a lot of questions, if there's a lot of stuff that I didn't cover, I will revisit this topic and show you how to do even more. Maybe in the future we'll do another one on how to get paint jobs into R-Factor, into Assetto Corsa, which is a little bit more complicated. Now, when I saved this and overrided the file 15631 car _ 15631 in iRacing, that made it so that I see it. If I want everybody to be able to see it, I need to upload this paint scheme to Trading Paints, and then it'll be there for the world to see as well. So again, I hope this helps you with painting. I hope you've enjoyed this show. We'll do more of these in the future if you enjoyed it. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.